1923 Season 2, Episode 2 paves the way for one awful character's redemption, not Whitfield or Banner. 1923 Season 2, Episode 2 paves the way for an awful character's redemption. A character even more horrible than Banner Creighton, Jerome Flynn, or Donald Whitfield, Timothy Dalton. 1923 introduced chilling and controversial villains into the Yellowstone franchise. Still, most want to take the Duttons' land, and we know they won't succeed. In 1923 Season 1, Whitfield wants the Yellowstone Ranch for its minerals. In Season 2, he hatches a new business scheme after discovering his miners from Norway skiing down the side of the mountain. However, the villains hunting Tiana Rainwater, Amina Neves, are more horrifying than anything the Duttons face in Montana. In 1923 Season 2, Tiana is on the run from Father Renaud, Sebastian Rocha, and Marshall Kent, Jamie McShane, after escaping an abusive boarding school in North Dakota. While they haven't encountered Tiana yet in Season 2, the men have terrorized other Indigenous American groups trying to find her. Still, a conversation between the obsessed men in Episode 2 paints a vital difference between the predators. Believe it or not, the discussion between Father Renaud and Marshall Kent opens the door for the former's redemption. While Renaud and Kent rest in Episode 2, a group of young Comanche warriors attack them. Renaud and Kent fight back, supported by the Marshals' keen gunslinging skills. However, Renaud is hesitant to use a weapon against their attackers, telling Kent that he is a man of God and implying that it isn't righteous for him to kill. The comment was surprising, considering the father beat one of his students to death in Season 1. In 1923 Season 2, Episode 2, a conversation between Renaud and Kent before the attack shows their essential differences. Renaud believes that if Indigenous Americans assimilate, they should be rewarded with equal rights. The conversation reveals that Renaud doesn't think much of race and focuses more on whether a group of people has accepted their evolution. On the other hand, Kent proves he is simply bigoted with his treatment of Mamie Fawcett, Jennifer Carpenter, and the suggestion that he doesn't think people like Tiana deserve citizenship. Father Renaud notices the differences in ideals, giving him a chance to reflect. Father Renaud is the leader of the Catholic church-run boarding school Tiana attended. In line with the authentic government, or church-operated Indian boarding schools at the time, Renaud's mission is to assimilate his students into civilized society. The slogan of the most infamous of these boarding schools was "Kill the Indian, save the man." The schools aim to strip Indigenous American children of their culture to save them. Renaud is fixated on Tiana because he has dedicated himself to that mission, letting it prevent him from adhering to the mindset of love and acceptance that defines his religion. The more time the priest spends with the marshal, the more Father Renaud sees Kent's bigoted ways. The difference between Renaud and Kent is that the father genuinely believes he is doing the right thing. Kent, on the other hand, has proven to be brazenly discriminatory and prejudiced, using religion to justify his actions and assume forgiveness. The events in 1923 Season 2 could cause Renaud to reconsider his predetermined ideas, and he could redeem himself by letting Tiana go free, realizing that he, too, has been unjustly discriminatory and cruel. As 1923 Season 2 unfolds, Episode 2 takes an unexpected turn, offering a path to redemption for a character many fans had written off as irredeemable. While the obvious villains, Donald Whitfield and Banner Creighton, continue their ruthless campaign against the Duttons, the show subtly shifts its focus to a different antagonist whose story arc takes a surprising direction. That character, Sheriff William McDowell, a lawman with tainted integrity. Introduced in Season 1 as the Sheriff of Montana, McDowell was a man of the law who found himself caught between duty and self-preservation. Unlike Jacob Dutton, who fought for justice through grit and violence, McDowell often hesitated, choosing political convenience over morality. His willingness to turn a blind eye to Whitfield's growing influence, coupled with his failure to take decisive action against Banner Creighton's atrocities, made him an enabler of corruption rather than a protector of the land. By the end of Season 1, McDowell's reputation was in shambles. He had proven himself ineffective, allowing outside forces to exploit Montana while hiding behind the thin veil of legal authority. When the Duttons needed him most, he was either absent or too passive to make a difference. But 1923 Season 2, Episode 2, changes everything. A town on the brink. The episode opens with a tense scene in Bozeman. Whitfield's stranglehold on the town is tightening, his influence seeping into local businesses, law enforcement, and even the courts. With Banner Creighton acting as his violent enforcer, the people of Montana are growing restless. The Duttons, still reeling from their losses, are preparing for another inevitable confrontation. McDowell, now more of a political puppet than a lawman, finds himself at a crossroads. He's given a direct order from Whitfield's allies to officially seize a portion of the Yellowstone ranch under the guise of unpaid taxes, a legal maneuver designed to weaken the Duttons. If he complies, he cements himself as a corrupt figurehead, forever siding with the forces that are dismantling Montana. If he resists, he risks his own life and career. For the first time, McDowell doesn't simply comply. Instead, he hesitates, conflicted about his role in this brewing war. A conversation with Jacob Dutton. McDowell's turning point comes when he pays a visit to the Yellowstone ranch, expecting a hostile reception. Jacob Dutton, still recovering from the injuries inflicted by Banner's men, doesn't hold back. "You're not a sheriff," Jacob growls. "You're a dog on a leash, and the man holding that leash don't give a damn about Montana. He just wants it in his pocket." McDowell, visibly shaken, tries to defend himself. "The law." "There ain't no law when men like Whitfield own it," Jacob interrupts. "If you're here to steal my land with a piece of paper, best be ready to die for it." McDowell doesn't hand over the documents. Instead, he pockets them and leaves, his moral conflict reaching a breaking point. A betrayal that changes everything. Later that night, McDowell is summoned to a private meeting with Whitfield and his associates. Sitting at a lavishly set table, Whitfield calmly asks if the Duttons have accepted their fate. McDowell hesitates before responding. "They're not gonna let go of that land," he finally says. Whitfield smirks. "Then they'll be forced to." He nods toward Banner, who begins outlining their next violent move, a coordinated attack to permanently remove the Duttons. McDowell realizes the full extent of Whitfield's intentions. This isn't just about land. It's about wiping out an entire legacy. At that moment, something shifts inside him. For years, he convinced himself he was powerless against men like Whitfield. Now he sees an opportunity to do something about it. As Banner boasts about how he'll personally finish the job, McDowell makes a decision that will alter his fate forever. He subtly shifts his gaze, scanning the room for vulnerabilities. He listens. He memorizes details. And when he leaves that night, he does so not as a cowardly lawman, but as an informant willing to betray the men he once served. A secret alliance. McDowell's first act of redemption comes when he secretly meets with Kara Dutton. At first, she refuses to trust him. "You've done nothing but look the other way while my family suffered," she says coldly. McDowell nods. "I know, and I won't let it happen again." He then shares everything. Whitfield's next move, the names of his co-conspirators, and even a potential weakness in their operation. He warns them that Banner is preparing an ambush, and for the first time, McDowell actively works against the men who once controlled him. Kara listens carefully, then asks, "Why now?" McDowell doesn't have an easy answer. Finally, he mutters, "Because I finally see what they are. And I see what I've been." A deadly gamble. But redemption in 1923 doesn't come without consequence. McDowell's decision to aid the Duttons makes him a marked man. Whitfield isn't a fool. He suspects disloyalty. And in the closing moments of Episode 2, McDowell finds himself confronted by Banner in a dark alleyway. "You think you can switch sides and live." Banner sneers, his pistol pressed against McDowell's gut. McDowell, perhaps for the first time in his life, stands his ground. "I ain't scared of you anymore." A gunshot rings out, and the screen cuts to black. Why McDowell's redemption matters? McDowell's redemption arc is significant because it breaks the mold of the typical 1923 antagonist. Unlike Whitfield and Banner, who are driven by greed and violence, McDowell is a man who allowed himself to be controlled out of fear. His journey from cowardice to defiance adds depth to this season's conflict. By choosing to fight against corruption, even at great personal cost, McDowell becomes an unexpected ally to the Duttons. His redemption may not erase his past failures, but it proves that even the weakest men can find strength when pushed to their limit. Whether or not McDowell survives Episode 2 remains to be seen, but one thing is certain. He's no longer the sheriff who stands idly by. He's a man willing to fight. And in 1923, that's what separates the living from the dead.